Hello and welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker. Today we have another installment of what makes this hike great as we tackle Mt Minsi on the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware Water Gap. In 2021, we reviewed the most popular hike in New Jersey, at least in northern New Jersey, called Mt Tammany. This hike is much like Mt Tammany's younger sister, always trying to live up to the older's reputation. At least at first glance, this doesn't quite seem possible. Tammany is a true gem. But upon closer inspection, Mt Minsi has a lot to offer. An incredible view, multiple streams, opportunities to explore on your own, and one magnificent rhododendron tunnel. This loop is relatively short, just over 5 miles, and it has a total elevation gain of about 1,100 feet, straight up the Appalachian Trail and back down the Mt Minsi Fire Road. Few like fire roads, but this one isn't half bad as fire roads go, and there's always interesting foliage on both sides of the hiking trail. Even better, the adventurous can choose to go a little off the beaten path and take some unblazed trails just off the fire road that takes you to a wonderful creek and an area called Table Rocks. Parking is tight, so get there early in the summer, especially on the weekends, or you can utilize the free shuttle from the Caledonia Visitor Center that takes hikers to trailheads around the area. Also note, there really are no restrooms at the trailhead, so either use the visitor center on the way in, or there are multiple gas stations really from any entrance point in any direction that you're coming. One note on geography: millions of years ago, the Tammany side and the Minsi sides were joined together by one ridge. And then the glaciers came through and carved what we now know as the Delaware Water Gap. Today, the New Jersey side, that ridge is called Caledonia Ridge, and on the Pennsylvania side, that ridge is called Blue Mountain. As for the trail itself, it's a relatively easy route. You hike up Mt Minsi via the famous Appalachian Trail and back down via the Mt Minsi Fire Road. The only tricky section is the fire road itself. There is one viewpoint a little bit past what I would call the summit of Mt Minsi. So as you're on the AT, just follow that until you get to this last viewpoint that overlooks an area of the Delaware River onto Portland, Pennsylvania. And on the way back, you can very easily spot the fire road. Where the tricky part comes in, sometimes if you're not going to that final destination, you can make the wrong turn and head the wrong way on the fire road. Easy enough to spot, you should have no problem. One final note: some see it as a badge of honor to tackle both Mt Minsi and Mt Tammany in the same day. It's certainly doable. It's probably about 9.2, 9.4 miles of hiking and a total elevation gain of 2,300 feet. I have not tried it, but my daughter has, so congratulations to her. Okay, so what makes this hike great? I think first and foremost has to be the world-class rhododendron tunnels that line both sides of the route up Mt Minsi on the Appalachian Trail. There are so many sections of really dense, true tunnels that make the hike so exquisite and a feeling of closeness that you rarely get in such a populated area. And of course, it always is a good excuse to pause as your legs are burning from climbing up the initial ascent to explore the rhododendron tunnel area. And even the fire road on the way back down has sections where both sides of the trail are lined with rhododendron. The second aspect that makes this hike great is a really incredible view overlooking the Delaware Water Gap itself. So about halfway up Mt Minsi, at the 1.2 mile mark or so, just off the Appalachian Trail, is a viewpoint that you really can't miss. It has a spectacular view of the river as it just goes around the bend. There is Route 80 that you can very clearly see in the foreground, but that's okay. That's part of the gap's charm to me, is that this beautiful area can be nestled in a fairly populated, not urban scene, but a fairly populated scene. There are a few other spots that you can also see the river, but I think this one really stands out, and the others can be obstructed in the summer months. The third aspect of this hike that I love and makes it great is the unblazed section of Caledonia Creek and Table Rocks. So before we get to how to get there, let me just take a moment. This is truly unblazed, so if you're not comfortable finding your own way around in the woods, maybe don't try it until you're with an experienced person. Don't get me wrong, this is not back wilderness. You really cannot get lost. To the east is a residential area. To the west is the Appalachian Trail. And these unblazed trails are very clear to follow. They're used all the time. They just don't have blazes on them. So if you're not entirely comfortable, skip it for now. Find a partner that you are willing to be a little adventurous with, and it really pays off. So the creek itself is pretty wonderful. It's a small creek, but again, lined on both sides often by rhododendron tunnels, and there's even a nice waterfall at the bottom before you hit the residential area. This is a great little spot that can be very secluded that not everyone knows about because of the unblazed trails. So check that out. And then on the way out, as you're going towards Lenape Lake, there's something called Table Rocks, which is just an open expanse of, it's a pretty cool bedrock area. It has some type of fence there, so it used to be, I guess, owned by somebody that put up a fence. But again, I still love the charm of this area. Now, on the day I hiked to record this route, I chose not to do Table Rocks and explore a new area. That didn't work out. It was just an okay trail. So when you're looking at this video right now, you can see where I turn off. Don't turn off here, follow the gravel road towards Table Rocks, and you can't go wrong. And how do you find this? So once you get off the Appalachian Trail on your way back down and hit the Mt Minsi Fire Road, from that point it's about 1.6 miles. And then on the left there's a fairly wide trail that's unblazed that you really can't miss if you're looking for it. And once you get there, take your first access, another unblazed small trail down to the creek itself. I like to just follow the creek until I hit that waterfall, and then you can head off and try to explore Table Rocks. One last note, I mentioned Lenape Lake. This is your clue that you're really near the parking lot. So whether you take the western route that I took today when I recorded this, or you take the Table Rocks route, both end up at Lenape Lake, which is very close to the parking lot. So once you see that small lake, you're good to go. There really aren't that many downsides to this route, but I can think of maybe 2.5, let's call it. The first is the fire road. If you are not going to explore Caledonia Creek, then the fire road is really just a means to an end. I mentioned that it's not a terrible fire road, which is true, but it's still a fire road. And especially upon repeat visits, I would think that this becomes a bit of a drag if you've done it before. And second, while not nearly as crowded as Mount Tammany, this is certainly a popular hiking route. And I think that's for two reasons. One, general walkers, not hikers, like the path of the fire road. And then you have the hikers, not the walkers, that like the Appalachian Trail. So it really brings two different communities together in the same area, so it can get crowded. Again, as with any hike, get there early and you'll be fine. Get there midday, you will definitely encounter other people on the trail. And the half problem, in terms of photography, this is not a wonderful area, at least in my experience. I've tried multiple times, and maybe it's my failing, to capture a great rhododendron tunnel, but it's very difficult, especially on trail with a lot of people, to set up the tripod and get in everyone's way. So I tend to not try too often. And even the overlook, about halfway up Mt Minsi, as great as it is, it's a small section to set up. And with a lot of people there, you don't want to be sitting there for a half hour dialing in a composition as people are trying to take in the view around you. It's just not that type of place. So photography, your best bet is the Caledonia Creek area, which I find lovely, but I have had no luck, probably due to my own skill set rather than any problem with the scenery. So there you have it. I highly recommend Mt Minsi. It is a fun hike that is not too long, so if you're not looking for a 10-12 mile, 3/4 day hike, this hike is definitely for you. On the way out, I recommend the Sycamore Grill off of Main Street. It has some delicious food and some good beer options, but really that whole area of the town of Delaware, the town of Water Gap, the town of Delaware Water Gap, whatever the town is called, either Water Gap or Delaware Water Gap, they are used to hikers, right? This is the Appalachian Trail that basically runs through the entire area. So in the summer, there are plenty of food options, plenty of drink options. They don't mind smelly hikers. So yes, definitely enjoy some food afterwards. Thank you very much for watching. Get out and explore.